Anson, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here and glad to see so many people joining us today. I'm coming from San Antonio, Texas, out here in my backyard. So if you're wondering what's behind me, it's my porch. And I just want to kind of share some just big thank yous and gratitude for the support that everybody has been showing to each other and to us here at TWC and to T-Call, and just an amazing outpouring from everybody in terms of engagement and contributions in a very hectic time for everybody's personal lives and work lives. So, I think we'll all stay strong in this together if we can keep the AEL community strong. And I'm just thrilled every day to see you guys posting your classes on Twitter and LinkedIn and seeing the collaboration that's going on. You have no idea how much energy it gives us when we're trying to plow forward with some emergency feedback or guidance, either to our leadership or to you guys. And when we try to, want to get some feedback, when we ask, people to give us some feedback, man, we just get just dozens and dozens of people taking a little corner of their time, which is very busy at a local level, to give us feedback. And that has made everything really flow for us so much better here. So thank you for that, and I'm sure it'll continue. The workloads are really different around here for you guys and for us, and I want you to always know that we're trying to be as responsive as possible. Sometimes there's going to be some delays, but I also want to kind of give you a glimpse into what's happening with the AEL team. As you guys have heard on the news quite a bit, there's just been an onslaught of UI, unemployment insurance claims, unprecedented amount of claims. I think last day there were 100,000 calls with 900,000 on wait at one moment. So we're talking a tremendous amount of input coming into the agency. And what that means is we've started to ask members of our team, including AEL members, to start doing unemployment insurance duty. And Blanca Saldivar and my team started, I think, yesterday on that. Others will be going off and doing that. And I wanted to let you know, it doesn't mean we're going to be reducing our service to you. We're picking up business, every day seems to get busier. So I'm going to be managing kind of, I can share with my UI partners in terms of reasonable load, knowing that they're at an excruciating level, but I want to ensure that we can maintain adequate service delivery for you guys too, but know that it's going on. It creates some extra tension for everybody just because it's a new skill set. You've got to code off and on. So if you're working with one of my staff in the future that are doing that, know that they're kind of switching from, fielding phone calls or resetting PIN codes to coming back into adult ad. And sometimes that transition can be a little hectic. It's been very brisk around here. I know Monday it appeared that that's when many of you came back to class after prolonged spring breaks. And I could tell that because there seemed to be a lot less activity in terms of email and completion of surveys and stuff on Monday than there had been in the previous week. So I just had a feeling, and I knew that a lot of schools went back on Monday. So I know that just was probably turning into 12-hour days for some of you folks, if not more. And that being said, we were chatting about it before the call started, but, I want to remind everybody to take some time and keep your head about yourself in terms of finding personal space and time. There's a lot of turbulence going on in many realms, and then work is extremely busy in a whole new kind of dimension for us. And I know, I have a lot of energy, as you guys know, but man, I find myself just fatiguing just because we're just constantly on the laptops with feedback coming in from all over and that does wear you out. And we don't need anybody to burn out. We need to kind of keep our mental health too. So try to find some times to do that with your team. My team takes breaks and we just chat and joke about things, or share what we're doing on terms of exercising and stuff like that. So I advise you, if you're a leader out there with a bunch of staff, to find some time just to not talk about all the other things, and just share some personal stuff. And I think you probably do that. One thing I was also found might be a good idea, if you're a director, you're not going to have a lot of time during the day to sit on your email, most likely right now. And few people will, but it might be not a bad idea to recommend that somebody on your team be kind of the person that's on the lookout for TWC messages and updates and things like that. I think if you're sitting there at a local level and you're just trying to, deal with classes and teachers working remotely and all of that, I wouldn't want you to feel like you're going to have to stay up till 10 o'clock at night to catch up on your email. It might not be a bad idea to have a delegate that could be checking email and things like that. The TCall webpage we're trying to make as the main resource for new information coming out. But it's a lot to kind of code switch between in terms of what you're doing at work, and then with what's going on with us over here at TWC and feedback coming in. So that's not a bad idea either. So anyway, just some stuff I wanted to talk about as updates over here in the overall kind of topic of the pandemic. I wanted to switch over to the TCall webpage and remind you guys that this is the go-to place for us. We are constantly trying to bring information out through that source, and TCall has just done an amazing job. Deb and Beth and Laura and Krista and Jorge, and behind the scenes on the webpage, Tracy Hendricks on assessments, Robin Booth. We've just been working every day. It seems like from when we wake up till late in the afternoons, trying to get this right for you guys out there in the field. The webpage is just fabulous, and we have split it into kind of a student section and then the provider section. And this is where we also have our updated FAQ, which I'll talk about. So if you go to it now, that's what the splash page looks like. It's got a button for students and a button for providers. Click over to the student one real quick there, Deb. This one we're updating. We just updated it yesterday with a lot of multilingual resources that you can share on your own personal pages and have handy for students to find out information on COVID-19 prevention and protecting yourself. Got those courtesy of some folks out in San Diego. But this page is really something we would like for you to be able to share when you're doing your remote classes. Make sure students see that it's here. By no means does it, answer everything, but it does give you some quick resources to help them along. The unemployment insurance information is up there, including now a link to it in Spanish. And that will help you help folks that are finding a job. And as I continually say, if you're a teacher out there or working with teachers, make sure you're reminding students about unemployment insurance, and that oftentimes they're going to be eligible for that. The rules around that are being really loosened up quite a bit because of the demand that's coming down, and the federal government's been very generous, and our commissioners have been super responsive. Same goes for subsidized childcare through our workforce centers. Lots more flexibility going out for that also. So those are things to pay attention to. And then information on for families, school lunches out there, different ways that you can help your neighbors stay in touch with what's going on in their communities. So let's go back and look at the FAQ real quick here, and we'll spend a little bit of extra time on that. So this is going to be, this one was released to last on the 25th. And this is going to be, you know, as I've said before, our go-to for the final word on guidance. I'm purposely kind of taking a hiatus this week on updating it, so don't expect a new version of this until probably Monday. But know that I have about 7 pages of new questions that I'm working on right now that will go into it. But continually ask yourself first before you fly off the, you know, shoot from the hip and make a decision on your own, or call us or email us, but maybe check here first. We're trying to get all the questions in here. I think we've done an amazing job of getting a lot of this stuff in here. There were a lot of finance questions last week related to things such as paying staff that are working remotely and paying rates of pay for students in our finance department's been fantastic in giving us feedback on answering those questions, but also lots on remote and distance learning. And TCall has been wonderful in supporting us with lots of resources and webinars on that topic. That's the name of the game right now. And you're probably noticing, like, as you see this happening in your public schools and stuff, that we're sometimes ahead of the curve or close to it on what we've been doing already for a few weeks here now. So I'm real proud of ourselves and the feedback that you guys have provided us to help us. So the next wave of FAQs will come out early next week. And it's really drilling into some of these same topic headings. And then the big piece of work that's kind of in front of us right now, and I'm going to imagine it's going to take up a lot of discussion, and all it already has to do with this whole topic of serving new students at a distance. And we are we sent out, I sent out last week the draft guidance on serving new students on Friday, and with a survey, and the survey was really to get your questions. I was up early this morning going through those questions. We had about 25 really good responses. And I want to thank, I want to take this time for the FAQs and the serving students at a distance. I mean, you guys have just been really coming through for us. Risa Wingfield out there at Elcott, and Debbie Alfred at Brownsville ISD, Tony and Lewis out there in Far West, Joe Arrington, Oscar at Southwest Texas Junior College. You guys are asking great questions. Denise Orand and Donnie out there in Weatherford. Thank you for doing that. Ask those questions. No question is too trivial. And there are things that we're just going to continually refine. Can answer, and then, boy, those policy hawks out there, you drill in, and we need that.
Anson?
Yes.
We do have a question right now, if you're willing to go ahead and take it. It's from Susan Gessler. What is Anson's advice for students who are trying to file for unemployment and can't get through by phone and can't apply online because of a name change? She sent it privately. Let me put it in the chat pod.
Okay, so the individual's name has changed and they can't apply online. Let's write that down, and I'll have Maria on my team help me bird dog an answer to that, Susan. That's a great question. I'm no expert on UI. I do know that they're really wanting people to go online because the phones are, as I mentioned earlier, just overloaded. They're actually advising people to do their work, if they can, after 11 p.m. or before 6 a.m. because if people are up late, they can probably have better access to individuals and through the email system. But Susan, great question. We'll see if we can get you an answer to that. But as I'm understanding it, it's the individual can't get through on the phones, but they've changed their name, and for some reason that's restricted them from doing the online application. So we'll see.
Hey, Anson.
information out.
Anson,
Mm-hmm.
it's Travis. Hey, so have you talked about the Larry the Chat box yet for you just launched? And maybe
Yeah, let me mention that. Susan, this may help you, although I think it's got limited questions in it. But there's a chat bot on the TWC homepage now that's dedicated to UI. Only UI. I tried to put in some questions in there yesterday, and it doesn't answer questions about GED testing and stuff. But the UI questions you can submit, and it generates responses. So that might be another place to try, and we could even test that out on our end. But thank you for reminding me about that, Travis. It's a good resource.
No problem.
Were there any other questions before we get back in here?
No, sir.
Okay. Back to the FAQ and the new students at a distance. Let's go ahead and the other thing I'd like to say on the FAQ is most of the questions that we are answering in the FAQ apply to all programs that are serving students. That means Accelerate Texas and ability to benefit programs and distance learning mentoring programs. There are a few out there that do not, but a few of the questions like the DL plan only applies to the core grantees, not to Accelerate Texas. But most of the service delivery questions, intaking students, remote learning, all of that. If you're an Accelerate Texas program out there, Southwest Texas Junior College or ability to benefit at Del Mar, you guys, those things will apply to you also if that was a question that you had. Okay, so yes, this new student information, I'm going to skip on the agenda a little bit and just talk about that since I was already on a roll. But that's going to be a big area of business for us in terms of what do we do with these new students? Your questions are, will they count in performance? How do we test them? Do we have to do a Pearl on them? Do we have to do the full enrollment? And we're going to answer all those questions. We have answers for some of them. Some of them I'm getting fact checks on from Adam Leonard and other people. But everything looks really positive that we're going to be able to make a pretty seamless transition into continuing to build new student access to our services, even on the testing front. There's been lots of discussion. There was a phone call at 8 this morning with the Department of Education, but it looks like the testing vendors, CASAS and DIR and Cal, they're all really working diligently to make remote testing an option. It is not right now, and don't go do it. Don't try to do it until you get guidance from us, and we will only do it once we get guidance from the test publishers. But we will be developing a model where you can bring in new students. They're not going to be tested immediately, but you're going to be able to serve them. And we have a tracker tool that we are developing to help you enroll those students and keep track of them, because at the end of the day, we don't know how long we're going to be in this holding pattern for testing and for in-person services, but we want to be able to come out of it and have a very strong way to have an accountable record of those students. And Christine Long over here at TWC, one of our great partners, put together a fantastic tool yesterday that we were demoing and fine-tuning. So that's all coming. We hope to have a lot of this released next week. My goal is to continue to work on the technical guidance document for serving new students at a distance. And then the FAQs, I'm going to tie FAQs directly to that release because they're all very specific to that. And then have that with the tracker released next week, early in the week. And I want to, my goal is to get it as good as we can get it I even heard that we may be getting more information on remote testing Monday from the Department of Ed. So that might push my document a day out. But that's a priority for me to get that out to you. But I want to get it out as full-bodied as I can, because I think we're close on so many things. And if I can wait 24 hours or 48 hours to get it that much closer, I want to do it. And then we'll get it out. We're not going to sit on it too long, because you guys, I know, are getting students already. We're getting emails about students looking for classes. I wanted to say a thing about this. A few people on the phone will remember these days, Travis, who just spoke up well, but in adult ed, my work with many of you guys has never been in an environment where we had high unemployment. Never. That goes back quite a ways for us in Texas. We've been very fortunate to have a great economy, but we're in that phase now, and that's a very different environment in many ways. And it's an environment where education and getting your GED and getting a high school equivalency, learning more English becomes a much more important part of people's lives, because they've had 2-3 jobs. They've been making good money for years without strong skills, often because businesses needed to hire anybody they could find. Now businesses are shedding workers. There's a lot of dislocations come off. I get the dislocation emails from companies daily, and I see them coming in every day. It's just astounding how many layoffs are happening. It's very unfortunate, but a lot of those are going to be students with low skills and students that didn't have a high school equivalency, and they're going to be coming back to you. So I wanted to just say, that's going to be a big part of what I think we're going to be doing in the future, this summer especially. So oftentimes your programs kind of wind down a little bit in the summer and take a breather. I think this summer is going to be a different one for us, and I'm just letting you know that you might want to prepare for that if you're a director. I really am predicting a big service, especially for high school equivalencies. And I want to talk about that some. We are seeing, people are going to be getting laid off. They need a high school diploma. Of course, a lot of the ESL students will need more English. But we're also seeing a lot of disruption, as you guys know, in public schools with graduates of high school. And I know, students are out there like I was, a senior year of high school, about this time of year. I had pretty much given up, and if it wasn't for the last couple of months of school, I might have dropped out. And I think a lot of students now that were on the edge or on the edge of graduating, that now are having to try to do remote high school completion, or maybe the prospects of going through the summer in summer school. There's going to be a lot of students that are going to say no thanks, and they may drop out, and they may be showing up at your doorstep. So I think we might be seeing, I'm just kind of looking in the crystal ball, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot more high school equivalency students coming in from all directions. That's just something to build for. If you're short-staffed on high school equivalency teachers, I would probably count that as something I'd be worried about coming into the summer here, and seeing if you can build a strategy. I could be very wrong, but I think the math is with me. Anytime there's been a big layoffs and high unemployment, those GED and adult ed numbers tend to tick up.
Anson?
Yes.
Denise Arand writes, I agree there's a surge in interest already. I have had an employer contact us who wants their employees into training now while they're remotely working.
Great. Yeah.
Michelle says, is there discussion over text chase testing remotely?
Yes, let me answer that real quick.
Okay.
There is a very healthy discussion going on with ETS and with the GED testing service. I would put $20 on the table that one of those two, if not both, are going to be going remote very soon here, because they're on the front step of being a solution to a national crisis on high school completion. And they want to deliver, and they got the deep pockets to do it. So that's why I'm kind of wanting to give you guys a heads up. And while you think of, and I want to make sure you're getting your questions in, but I wanted to say one other thing as I bounce through the agenda here is that we've been talking about our high school equivalency voucher program, and that is very close to completion also. So let me shift to that a little bit, and I realize I'm kind of bouncing through the agenda here, and I'll come back to some of these other items, and if I don't, somebody remind me. But if we skip down to, it's number C there, I think high school equivalency voucher program. So right above that, there were some rules that were posted yesterday. And Fabiana, if Beth, you can pull up that email I sent you. And then Fabiana, if you want to talk about what's happening on these rules and how it engages with the high school equivalency voucher discussion, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. And good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me clear?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Well, hello, good morning. I'll be brief here. I think you all should have received a Gov delivery notice from TWC. So it looks like this little screenshot that you're looking at right there. And I believe over the last several months, we've been communicating in these calls just how we intend to implement this high school equivalency subsidy program. I know Anson and Mahali talked about it at the AEL business meeting a couple of months ago, and we got some really good feedback from you all on kind of the granular nitty-gritty of how we intend to implement that program. So yesterday, our 3-member commission approved how we intend to implement this program in rule. This is a multi-step process, and rather than bore you with all the details, I'll just give the high-level overview. The statute in this bill, House Bill 3, which is a high school equivalency subsidy, and then there's House Bill 1949, which relates to the performance-based funding, which you all are aware of. You know, we just released a Q2 1%, and we've been in talks with you all throughout the year on that. So those 2 bills require us to develop rules, just to kind of flush out more. Okay, here's the legal statute that's in the House bills. Now tell us, TWC, how do you intend to implement this? Put that in Texas Administrative Code rule. So when we talk about rule, that's what we mean. And, you know, it's Chapter 800 and Chapter 805 rules outline all the AEL, the statewide grant competition, all those details. When we talk about it's in rule, that's what we mean. So House Bill 3, we need to put in rule, and we have details in this policy concept. So in that, under item 2 there's a link for high school equivalency subsidies, House Bill 3. If you click on that, Deb, that'll take you all to how we, TWC, intend to propose this all work and what we want to put in rule. So Deb, I don't know if you can click on that. But that gives you...
Yeah, I did. I just have to stop sharing this one and share that one. Hold on.
Okay, I'll continue. And it's only about 2 or 3 pages, very high level. The rules don't get into the level of detail we talked about at the business meeting. If you remember, we looked at this really nice, simple to use Excel sheet tracker that Christine Long from our team created. So once we do have vouchers, we got some good feedback on how that would all look. You won't see that in the rule. What the rule says, what we're proposing to say is, we have this subsidy, and it's about $1.5 million for the next 2 years, and we want to prioritize that subsidy for our AEL participants. That is us, TWC, saying we want to prioritize that for our students because we know paying for GE and ISET is, hasn't been an option with our funds. Which is why we're saying we're going to take the priority here. And we know there's discussion on that at the business meeting. So the way we intend for this to work is based on, I believe, last year or last program year's historical high school equivalency test taking data in your areas. We will use that data to figure out how much of these subsidies you will get. And it won't be kind of all at once. We intend to do an initial distribution and maybe later in the year do kind of a reevaluation to see how much of that you have used, or maybe you need more, and kind of, offer that flexibility to offer more or less given on how much of those vouchers you've used. So please take a look, and I would definitely encourage you to make a comment on this. Right now, if you open this at the top, it says email TWC policy comments. Once you review this and how we intend to implement, send them your questions. And I would just be very clear about what the maybe page number and line number is, and what your concern, or maybe have an additional detail you think might be worth considering. All that's going to really help us move forward into the next phase of this, which is actually implementing it and then finalizing this in rule. So my ask is, given all the craziness, is take time, review it. What we want to see at the end of the day is our students really being able to use this subsidy, given all, we know, and so we're just talking about unemployment. So this can be, a really great tool and resource for our students who maybe can't afford that test at the end of the day. So take your time, review it. This is kind of the first step of the comment period. So in the next couple of weeks here, maybe by next Friday, this will get posted in the Texas Register. So it's kind of a more formal way for the public to get comment on these. So it's just a more formalized approach. But at this time, go ahead and send any emails or questions you have to that TWC policy comments. That'll make its way over to our labs, and we'll just look and really take in your feedback into consideration. So thank you. I appreciate it. I hope everyone's staying safe and sane and well. And let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Fabiana. It was a good overview. So let me give y'all a little background too on just what public comment is all about. If you guys were around back in 2014, we kind of did this a lot as a group and talked about public comment. But essentially, this is a public engagement phase. It's posted in the Texas Register, which is where public notifications get published. You're getting a preview here kind of through this release yesterday. But if you send comments in, typically what you're doing is saying what you feel needs to happen related to these different rules that are proposed, these concepts. It's a very structured process, meaning you send it into this TWC policy comments email address, and it gets logged and tracked, and then we are responsible for briefing our leadership on it. The commissioners will see all of these comments, and then we will incorporate and give feedback on those comments as they come in. And the idea is to really do in a very formal way what we try to strive for, which is always engaging you guys in the development of policy and procedures. So it's real important. Typically, I advise people that it is always good to check with your leadership if you're going to submit comments, because oftentimes your executive, your president or superintendent or chancellor will want to send the comments on their letterhead, because these are public record. These are official comments. And you also want to be sure that you're saying things that are aligned with what your organization believes or wants to say. So they have a lot of importance. They do get responded to, though, and we have always had really good feedback. When we developed our rules in 2014, we got just beautiful comments from some of you guys. They really helped us out in figuring this out. This high school equivalency voucher is a new realm for us in a very big way. So I think all of us would feel very comfortable if we felt like we contributed and were giving due measure in terms of our inputs on how the program should be structured and how the vouchers should be administered and those types of things.
Anson, this is Fabiana again. Can I add one more thing?
You bet.
Deb, can you pull up the document, that PDF, if you can go to page 2? Because we here at TWC have been, in the ins and outs of this for several months. We know the ins and outs of this. I just want to flag to you, there's underlined text in that PDF. And that's really what you want to be looking at in terms, because it's also, not that it's the bad word, bureaucratic. So
keep going down.
Keep going down.
So on this page, if you see all the underlying text, this is the language we're saying we want to see this in rule. So the language on page 1 and 2 that's underlined, that's all for the HB 19, the performance-based funding criteria. So we're saying, okay, statute requires us to put this in our rule. This is how it's going to look. So if you have a comment, that is why I'm asking, it's important for you to say, okay, page 2, line 33, what do you really mean by post-secondary credential? Or, just be as specific as you can, because that'll help us when we are talking to leadership or, in the future with the legislature about how we implemented these programs.
And the House Bill, you can see the House Bill 3 starts right there. So if you scroll up a little bit more, you'll see the stuff that we've been talking about. Down the page, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, Deb, if you can go to page 4. So page 4, there's all the underlying text.
I'm trying. There. That.
Perfect.
Okay.
So this in a nutshell says, this is what we want to put in rule. Here is the purpose of the high school equivalency program. And here's how we're defining certain things like eligible individual, subsidy. What do we mean by a voucher? So really focus on the underlying text and provide comments on that if you want to. And that's all I have. Thank you all.
Mm-hmm. And if you guys have questions, just feel free to engage us with that. This is a very arcane process for many people. This is not what you do every day, but it impacts what you do every day. And we do want to make sure that your input is taken in well. I saw Susan Gussler had some questions there.
Right.
And these are good questions, and these would form the kind of questions you might want to apply an opinion on when you send a comment in about which students are we talking about that would get a priority. What level do they need to be? Do they need to be GED ready? What are the criteria? So if you go through Susan and everybody else and read through this, it's written somewhat broadly with being as specific as we can. But if you really think we're missing something or you want a clarification, the clarification is often the best comments. We'll say something vaguely, maybe purposely vaguely, because we're wanting to stay very open on the topic. But if a lot of people come back and say, like, that's too vague, I don't know, that's not going to help me implement, that helps us. Then we say, well, we need to get a little bit more specifics in there. So don't shy away. It's nothing to be afraid of to send comments in. It is good to get your leadership's engagement on it. But I can tell you, for folks like me and Fabiana and Mahalia and everybody that works on this kind of stuff, it makes our lives a lot easier because we feel like we're just state bureaucrats at the end of the day. You guys are the ones that have to do this stuff with students in your communities. And we want to make sure this has got lots of validity when we release something like rules and guidelines.
And Denton's asking if this would work for high set as well as GED.
Yeah, this is going to apply for both tests and under the text chase. So we're working with both vendors, and they're both very engaged with this. So we've been very happy with the feedback. Hopefully, I think HiSET is kind of following along with where GED is going on things, just because GED's got such a big share in terms of this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, this is just a voucher that pays for any type of eligible high school equivalency test, the HiSET or the GED. Good question, Octaviano.
Todd, you asked a question, where is this located? Are you looking for this PDF? Here's that link again.
Yeah, what's the best way, we'll send this out via my distribution list. This went out on Gov Delivery, but Elena, if you can remember, we'll send this out under my email to our distribution list, because there's a lot of people that are on that probably aren't on the Gov Delivery list. Gov Delivery is kind of like our standard mailing list that has the grant recipients and stuff on it, but for sure, we want to get this distributed. And if for some reason you do not get it, just send Anson Green an email and I'll send it over to you, because we definitely want to get it out. Okay, we good there?
Yep, looks like it.
Good. Well, if you guys think of some other stuff, for sure, let's get those questions in. I'm going to go back up into the agenda under emerging responses updates. There, it's a top page 2, I think, or somewhere. Oh, right there. And talk about some things that are that I skipped over, and they have to do with funding. The 2 things I wanted to bring up are we have been pretty briskly working on a discussion paper or a proposal for our commissioners related to a wide variety of emergency funding requests to our commissioners. And we anticipate that going to the commissioners next week for consideration. And these include adult education and literacy funding opportunities to bring more money to you guys, as well as to do some other projects. I will, as soon as we have that information available publicly, we will be sharing that with you. But know that I think you guys know I've been hearing you really well in terms of funding needs. And we have done quite a bit of work on my team and with others in the agency to ensure that we have a good sense of where the gaps might lie or where they do lie. And hopefully, I think the commissioners are looking to be extremely responsive, and they are pushing things aside that aren't emergency related right now, which is good. We are prioritizing anything that's going to help our workforce board system, our partners, and you guys in AEL out. So I'll keep you up to date on the funding options to support COVID-19 response. And then I wanted to let you know too, we are still working on something that seems like ancient history now to some of y'all. You've been so busy in the last month, but the deobligation and reobligation discussions. And the story there is that our environment has changed dramatically since we began those discussions in the winter. And Travis Weaver and his team and myself are all looking with our leadership at how to tackle deobligation, reobligation in this lens of kind of the changing environment. And I want you to know we're not going to go into this tone deaf in terms of changing needs. And you'll be engaged in the process, but we're not taking it off the table yet either. And that's the main message I want to bring. I don't have a lot of more detail to share with you on that because we are still in the middle of our discussions. I'm looking at, yes.
Yeah, some comments. Sandra Cortez, excuse me, will additional funding be available for current ATX grantees?
Yeah, good question, Sandra from Laredo. Thank you. So we've gotten that question for Accelerate Texas especially. And our guiding principle right now is first, because here's what we understand is happening. I'm sure there's other things happening, but you have a grant with a finite life. Your classes are all canceled. but you're still paying salaries and you have expenses that are sometimes probably almost as high as they were before you closed down. But your timeline of implementation is running out. And so if you're in that category, we're prioritizing these requests. The first thing is contact your contract manager and copy Ann Savino if you're Accelerate Texas or ATB, let us know what's going on. Do you need an extension? Do you need an extension and more money? Make a request, and then we're looking at those requests in terms of priority based on which grants are ending first. So we have some that are going to be ending in just a few months, and then some that don't end for another year. And so we'll be kind of sequencing those requests in such a way. But we do want to hear from you because I don't want Accelerate Texas and our other discretionary grantees to feel left in the lurch that they're not in the main discussion on this. They're very much in the middle of the discussion, and we have a whole strategy based around responding to those grants in general. Travis, on any of these points, are there some clarifications you'd like to add or detail? I almost told him to star 6, but he didn't have to do that.
Let's see if we can help him.
Sorry. I've got like 3 different screens going on. So, so thank you. So thank you, Anson, for your thoughts on Riyadh Diab. This has been a really long process for all of us, and it's been a robust and healthy conversation that we're having, not only amongst my staff and Anson's staff, but with our leadership. And now with COVID to deal with it, that takes on a new element that we obviously were not predicting back in September when we started this process. So I know there's more news to come on that later down the road. Definitely not off the table at this moment, but something that we are still working through. In regards to, I know, Anson, did you talk about real quickly about the additional stuff that we're going for commission action for next week or the 14th in regards to our WII workforce integration contracts? You might want to. I'm going to wait on giving detail till we get a little bit more clarity on exactly the actions we're going to take there, but we'll get the information out as soon as we feel comfortable getting it out there. Right. They're going to be getting, there's more money being proposed for sure for everybody. Right. Absolutely. And then, of course, as we get closer to the end of the other grants, the other state leadership grants for ATX, then definitely assess your needs on a case-by-case basis at that time. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Travis. And if you guys have questions on that, you can always send them in. We're here to help and get that information out. A couple of other items that I wanted to bring up, and don't stop thinking about questions if you have them, because I'd love to get them on this call. But the one is, I think last week we had a question from Michelle Lamons in Amarillo about renegotiated targets. And if you remember, I said that, those of you that had renegotiated, the targets were approved by the commission. And I wanted to let you know that most likely tomorrow or Monday, a change letter for the target letter, which is AEL letter 0120, will be released. And that will have the new targets, and that'll be kind of the final word on the renegotiation. So look forward to that. The targets are no different than the ones that the commission approved a while back. And the letter just got held up a couple of weeks actually in my inbox. So I apologize for that. As soon as all this stuff with the pandemic hit, the email just got crazy. But we'll be getting that out to you. I also want to let you know that we're going to be switching these calls. And it's really webinar. I keep saying calls, but we're going to be switching this to every week now for the next 2 months.
And the reasoning there is there's a lot going on. We want to stay in touch. And there's a lot of webinars going on remote learning and other things. And I don't want those webinars to get clouded with questions related to other topics, because you just have a burning question you need to ask, or you want to hear an update. So we'll try to do this for the next 2 months weekly. I hope that doesn't seem too exhausting, but I think we need an hour every week that we can at least communicate directly. And the other thing to mention, I think I was remiss in mentioning, is tomorrow we scheduled a call yesterday very quickly, but we're going to have a separate call on serving new students at a distance. So look forward to that tomorrow. And you should have gotten the call-in information for that, but we want to kind of engage you on that separately, because that's a very thick discussion. And I was afraid we wouldn't have time on this call to tackle it in full detail. And I want to go through the tracking tool and all those kind of things, so that next week, hopefully, we can get things scrubbed up and ready to go for you. So any other questions coming in? I'm looking through here.
There was a comment by Gracie earlier sharing that a good special project could be adding digital literacy in addition to family literacy in this crisis. That would be great for our students and beneficial to all our students in the future. And we do have, Gracie, some links on the TCAL, the COVID page, the TWC page, that has some links to some digital literacy and computer literacy training too. So you might want to check that out as well.
Yeah, let me see, Grace. So this is Gracie from Brazosport. How are you doing? I'm reading your thing. So it sounds like you're talking about doing like a separate project for digital literacy, family literacy. And I think those are great ideas. Those are all eligible funding things that you can fund. And we're seeing a lot of people, of course, doing a lot of digital literacy right now. And I would tell everybody, don't shy away from going out there and tackling some topics that maybe you didn't think you were going to be doing. And if you're in an Accelerate Texas grant, like you guys are out in Brazosport, and you're basically kind of shut down on your training, which is very much the case. I mean, we can keep the lights on in reading, writing, math, and ESL, but you can't keep the lights on production worker and CNA and welding and those kind of things, because they just require so much hands-on tactical work. So if you're finding yourself with like going, what do I do with these students to keep them engaged? I would say don't hesitate to veer off your plans on the technical training and spend time on computer literacy, spend time on job exploration and those types of things. Family literacy, talk to students. Students will stay engaged. They come to us for discrete objectives, but they stay with us because of an environment and a community. And that gets challenged when you're working at a distance. And so if you're sitting there and you're running a class that ostensibly is an IET component class for a technical training, but it seems like people want to talk about good resources to help their students, their children learn, or talk about those kind of things, don't think you're off topic. We need to stay engaged with the students. There's a lot of, in IETs right now, there's just a lot of things you can't do. And it's better to stay on task and stay engaged than to kind of let the students lie fallow for a long time, and then we start to lose them because they lost us. That's something that it's been on my mind a lot. And they're at home with their children. They're trying to manage all of that, and we need to be seeing ourselves, as we always do, as solution providers to things in our students' lives beyond just AEL. We're the ones connected to education systems. We're the ones connected to workforce development. We need to be a conduit to those students for topics like, helping kids out in school, good places to go to find things for toddlers to do online, how to find unemployment insurance for the spouse or boyfriend or son or daughter that has been laid off. And you guys are one step ahead of your students on those things sometimes. Share that information with them no matter what kind of class. Other questions out there?
Some folks just sharing some links. Linda Fahoko GED updated their pages with a lot of educator support. It's a great resource to stay engaged with students. I put a link in directly to that digital literacy toolkit that Lori talked about. Sharing some resources.
One thing I'll let you guys know, we have 2 surveys in the work, and I know you might, I hope you don't gasp out when I say a new survey, but you guys do such a great job of filling them out that I just can't stop making them because we learn so much. But, we have 2, one coming out that Ann Savino's worked on specifically on IET, and that's an area we haven't spent as much time providing guidance on, so that's coming as a survey so we can learn what the gaps are. And then there's another one that is going to just be another refresh on some of the same things we've asked you before in terms of the percentage of students you think you're maintaining and serving. We're getting these questions from our commissioners. They want to just kind of keep their ear on the ground in terms of what's happening. And the last time I asked that question was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and a whole lot has changed since then. The other thing I'd like to know about is just gaps you're seeing in Wi-Fi access, especially in rural. I've reached out to some of you about that. I've seen really great stories about school buses and local school districts being outfitted with Wi-Fi hotspots and then driven out to remote areas so that parents can connect, as well as the distribution of Chromebooks and laptops and other devices to families so students can do their homework. That's one of the questions that we have working for you is guidance on loaning out laptops that have been purchased through AEL. So look for that in our next FAQ next week. But look for those surveys. I'll probably wait until Monday to send them out just because there's so much for you to absorb, and we don't need anybody to blow a gasket on trying to read all these emails.
Hanson, a couple of people have asked if you could send that link out again or the invitation for the call tomorrow.
Okay.
Some folks are saying in the chat pod they didn't receive it.
Okay.
They're not sure what time the call is.
We'll definitely get that sent back out. Anything else for anybody? Anybody on my team have anything they want to say? Mahalia, you got anything you want to share that I missed?
Vincent, this is Fabiana.
Yeah.
Just, you know, we've been doing our daily or bi-weekly FAQ update. The board side here also have a similar FAQ. We're getting similar questions, I think, from our workforce centers because a lot of them are virtually open or only have staff in the office. But that link for the board page is on the TCAL website under our FAQ, I believe. So just as an FYI, you can see what communications are being given to the workforce center side of things here. Excellent.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, those of you that wear 2 hats, board and AEL, know that there's just a tremendous amount happening on the workforce board side. And I did want to let you know, I thank you for sharing that, Fabiana, that the boards do have an FAQ and they've got a lot of questions going on for childcare and everything. But we're collaborating with them too. we, as you can imagine, are kind of the leaders on remote learning and other things. And they're definitely looking at our stuff to help support their career schools and other folks that are trying to get retooled. I saw, so a clarification on the call tomorrow. If you didn't get that, it's because you're not a grant recipient, could be one of the reasons. And what we're doing on the new students at a distance is limiting that to grant recipients, because there's a lot of kind of local procedures that the grant recipients are going to want to control when they do these processes. So if you're a subrecipient and you want access to that phone call, contact your grantee, your main grantee there, and just see if you can join or what their feedback is. But if you didn't get that, that's why some of you did not get that information. We only sent it out to the direct grant recipients because we have a lot of process built in there that they're going to have to define at a local level, and I'd rather let them get the first bite at the apple in doing that. Thank you for that clarification, Kim. Fabiana, there's a question there from Susan Gussler at ACC on the March 15th data deadline. Could you respond to that for us, what the latest is? Ashley's got April 30th up there. Okay. I don't know if Fabiana's still on. I mean, Mahalia. Okay. Anything else for questions, guys? Yeah, I see Laura got a question there. Accelerate Texas grantees did not get the feedback on serving new students at a distance. We're reserving that just for the main grantees. And I think what we'll probably schedule is a separate call for Accelerate Texas and ATB in the future here, because there's a lot of other little nuances there that we want to capture for those folks. So let me think about that here.
And then Ashley shares, excuse me, the dates were changed to the last day of the month due to the delay in teams.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashley.
And Anson, I just have one slide,
Yeah.
two quick slides on PD before we close, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Everybody see this slide? Just a quick shout out to those of you who have been so patient with us over the last couple of weeks. And we've been trying to get as many people in on these webinars that we've provided. I do want to share that, as you know, our post-production team of two, Laura and Katie, have been working really hard trying to get these through closed captioning and such. So I wanted to share, Katie just sent these to me this morning. These are the ones that you are in the portal right now as a recording. And I know some of you have reached out to myself and other members of my team asking when some of those webinars from last week would be in the portal, because you had some teachers that missed it. In particular, this one here, I'm taking my classroom virtual, now what, is the webinar that Glenda Rose did for us last week. And that's the one that is an hour and a half of using tools. Once you've got that virtual classroom set up, now what? Now what does your teacher do? And so that's one that is in the portal. And they're working hard right now to try and get the overview of Zoom into the portal, hopefully by tomorrow. And next week, we should have the just in time for WebEx training that Anne-Marie did on how to use WebEx. And then Glenda's hour and a half is that Engage one. The hour and a half version of Glenda's will be in the portal next week. So we've got a lot of activity going on in the background trying to get these out for you. This week we've had 6 specific webinars that we've done. Some of them are repeats. 2 of them are new this week. An overview of Zoom is a repeat from last week, as is the WebEx one. And then these 2 are new this week: planning a flipped approach to online learning and creating effective ed videos. They're being repeated. Some were yesterday and some are today. So hopefully we'll get those in post-production as well in the next week or two. And then next week we have the Census and Real World Math webinar from our folks at the Ed Tech Center and World Ed. I did see an email from Cynthia Peters this morning that said she may be modifying that a little bit to include what's going on right now. So if you have some teachers that are looking for some webinars for next week, we've got the census webinar scheduled, as well as these that'll be inside the portal. And that's what we have for now. Anson, back to you.
Okay, no, that's great news. So I wanted to share some things that were in the chat in case people missed them. So Mahalia confirmed that due to the extension of schools to May 4th, we're looking at the data entry deadline possibly past April 30th, understanding that schools may not have access to files to complete February or March data entry. We hope to get confirmation by our next call on the extensions past April 30th. And then there was another question I thought I saw in here. I guess not. Okay. Well, this sounds good. I think we got a lot in on this call. And I want to just encourage everybody to keep your head up and keep plowing forward with, feedback and questions. Join Twitter and share what's going on, because I think that's really, I just love seeing this. Brownsville ISD, you guys have been out there every day with your teachers, remote learning with students. And this brings a lot of, positive energy for yourselves, for your programs, for the teachers out there to get on social media, and it keeps us together. And I'm looking at it, because I'm responding and I'm trying to provide feedback. If you don't think you have time to do that, it doesn't take a lot of time, and it brings a lot of value. I was kind of on the fence for a long time, as many of y'all know, about doing that kind of stuff. But it brings a new dimension of quality, I think, to kind of what we're doing. And it's just been wonderful to see you guys share. Okay, so Elena is asking if there's anybody from Midland or Victoria County Junior College on there on the call, so we can do our roll call as we end up here. So please just respond in the chat if you're on there, Linda or Tiffany Johnson, or anybody else from Midland or Victoria. Okay. Well, I'm going to call it at 11:40, and let's end for the day, charge up with some lunch, and let's hit the ground running to help students out here in Texas. And we will see you guys tomorrow on our phone call. Looks like Linda Webb's there. Thank you, Linda. Goodbye. Signing out for Anson.
Thank you, Anson. Be safe, everyone. Take care. I'll leave the chat pod open for just a moment in case somebody needs to put some last minute comments. Lori, I'm saving the chat pod right now. Okay, I think that's it. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Deb. Y'all did a great job, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.